2, 1. Hello everyone, welcome to Travel Explore Celebrate Life with Veena World. We've passed 50 episodes now and this is just going to continue. We are going to come to you with more and more interesting episodes. Today we are going to talk about what are known as the most popular 4 pillars in India. Constructed in 1591, they are now known as the symbol of Hyderabad or also the symbol of the newly formed state of Telangana. Sunila, we were talking about the Charminar, and when you go to Hyderabad, this is the top draw for tourists. So I think a good point would be to just divide this episode into a few parts and talk about different things. And
Mhm.
one of the most important things that I'd like to start with, or we generally start talking about any monument, is when was it constructed? So you've been to Hyderabad, Sunila, I've been to Hyderabad, we've seen the Charminar. And I often confuse the Charminar when I'm saying it with the Char Chinar in Srinagar, because the Char Chinar is also like a sightseeing place, right? So let's start with the construction. Welcome to Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life. Let's talk about the Charminar today. Sunila, welcome to the show. Let's start with the construction.
Hi, Neil, and hello, everyone. Yeah, you rightly said. I mean, the name itself, right? It's so eponymous, Char Chinar. But Neil, the name gives you the clue as to where what is, because the Chinar trees are in Kashmir and Char Chinar in Kashmir and Char Minar so similar in Hyderabad. I never really thought of it till you brought this up. But Minar means a minaret or a tower. So the 4 towers of Char Minar standing so proudly in Hyderabad. And when we talk of construction, you did mention that almost more than 400 years old now, 1591, and they actually built it in 2 years. But I think the most interesting point is, why did they build it? Like, why are the Charminar standing where they are today? And the story is really interesting. Of course, there are many stories, like everything else. When it comes to monuments, we have so many stories of why it was really built, what it is. We don't know the truth completely. One of the interesting, of course, there has to be a love story, right? Every time you try to talk of any monument, and it said that Muhammad Kuli Qutub Shah, who was the fifth king of the Qutub Shah dynasty, they were ruling in Golkonda, but he happened to see his future wife Bhagmati right here at this spot, and for they fell in love, and that's why he built it. But there are better stories, and I think much more realistic stories. And one of them is that, of course, at that point, the seat of power was the Golconda Fort, but there was a plague, and everybody was dying of the plague. And so he said, I will shift the city, let me take care of the people, and if this is cured and the people are good, then I will. He pledged to build a madrasa and a masjid, and that is why the Charminar was built. And that is actually, I think it goes hand in hand. Charminar and Hyderabad city were built together, so I don't think you can say what comes first.
Yeah, we said that in 1591 was when the Charminar was built. There'll be some historical texts which will tell you that it was Hyderabad that was built in 1591 and it was the Charminar that came in 1592. Now, like you said, the story of Qutub Shah seeing his beloved future queen at where the Charminar is right now, it has been disregarded or rejected by historians and
Yes.
scholars. But every guide you meet in Hyderabad will mention this to you, telling you that, this is also a possibility why the Charminar was built, because it has become popular folklore among the locals, because this such a story sticks, right? But when you are talking about why the Charminar was built, there is another theory. There was a French traveler in the 17th century. His name was Jean de Thévenot,
Mhm.
and he narrated, like, and this has been complemented by different Persian texts also, that the Charminar was actually constructed to commemorate the beginning of the second Islamic millennium year. So the event was celebrated all across the Islamic world, and Qutub Shah also then decided and founded the city of Hyderabad to celebrate this event and commemorate it with the construction of this building, which is why I said that it is often said that the Charminar was not built in 1591, but in 1592, or construction had started for that. But yeah, like there are different stories, and different historical texts will tell you, and everyone has fact checked this, but these are the three theories that exist as to why the Charminar was actually built. Now, let's get into the specifications a little bit.
Neil,
What?
before we go there, I
Yeah.
just want to add that I think you're absolutely right. There are so many reasons that it was built. It's also really interesting as to where it was built, because it was built at the intersection of the historical trade route. This connects the city to the international markets through the port cities. So port cities, of course, were the gateways for international markets, and Machilipatnam was the closest port city. And I think it was such a wise decision to kind of built it at this intersection to to encourage trade. And whichever way we look at it, 1591, 92, it's kind of similar at the same time. And one of the proofs we can say that we have for that is actually an inscription on the Charminar, because Kuli Qutub Shah was also a poet. So Dakhni Urdu, which means the Urdu from the Deccan that is spoken, he was one of the earlier poets of this kind of poetry. And he actually wrote something in Urdu on the Charminar, which says that, in Urdu or Hindi, it says something like, Mera शहर लोगों से मामूर कर जैसे कि दरिया में मछलियां हैं. So something like, fill this city of mine with people as you filled the river with fishes, oh Lord. So he was praying to that. So which means that yes, it was set up together with Hyderabad. And as we can see, it is really full of people today, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like when you visit the Charminar, there's just like a lot of people, and there's markets all around, and it's bustling any time of the day. Because you mentioned the inscription, or how it was written in that poem, I'd also like to spend a little time discussing the structure itself. Because you
Mhm.
know
Yeah.
when and this is what the Veena World tour manager often does, right? When people visit the Charminar, as you're walking towards the Charminar, you see these four minarets, right? You
Mm.
see these four minarets, and you're like, okay, this is the Charminar. But people often don't know what to click pictures of. People don't know,
Mm.
like, array,
Mm.
what is so special about it? And when I went there, and I was with two Veena World tour managers, we were doing a recce for one of our tours, and that's when we had created this list that, okay,
Mhm.
when it comes to the structure itself, you can think about the structure in about 5 or 6 different parts. It's one angle that you take a photo from, where you have the entire Charminar in one photo
Mm.
frame, which is Charminar from further away. Now the Charminar is built in such a symmetric manner that you look at it from any
Mm.
side, it's going to appear the
Yeah.
same. So that's a great photo. A good photo is of you coming towards one of the minarets of the Charminar and clicking a close one, like vertically. So you can also, like you had taught me this, a vertical panorama, right?
Yeah.
So that works very well. Now there's detailing. Now there's detailing where a lot of the monuments in India are built according to Indo-Islamic architecture. There's Indo-Saracenic architecture, but the detailings about the Charminar are more so, if I'm not wrong, in the Indo-Islamic architecture with some Persian influences. So as you go closer, you zoom in with your camera, even if you're pointing it upwards, you can see some of the detailing, some Persian influences there, some Indo-Islamic influences there. Then there is the clock of the Charminar. Now, the clock of the Charminar was instituted much later, and
Mm.
that is something that you can click a photo of. You have to remember that there's a mosque on the second floor. So if you are to go inside, you can check that out. And it is also said that the Charminar is like illuminated at night. So if you were to visit, this is old Hyderabad, right? And if you are to visit old Hyderabad, you can see the Charminar at night. And if you are to visit the Charminar on Independence Day or Republic Day, the Charminar is beautifully lit in the tricolor. And that is a list that we had created along with this Charminar at night and Charminar in the tricolors, because when you know where to click a photo from or how to click a photo from, it becomes much easier checking out a monument. So like this is a list that I just wanted to bring in and add to it. Now I remember when you had visited the Charminar, you had, well, you were staying at one of the best hotels in India, and that
True.
was the Falaknuma, right? So
Yes.
now that was that the seat of the Nizam, or What?
So the Nizam, it was the palace of the Nizam, and actually
Yeah.
Falaknuma is something that the Nizam built himself. So
Mhm.
you can see it even today. It's still, I mean, and from the moment you enter, sitting in the, they take you in a buggy. The check-in is in a horse carriage ride, so it can't get any more special than that. When you come closer, they shower rose petals on you, and then you come in and you see the beautiful architecture. It's really stunning. So it's one of the best built palace hotels in India today. Yes, Neil.
So, okay, chalo, let's come to the specifications of the Charminar.
Mhm.
Let's talk about height. Let's talk about what material was used, things like that. What do you
Yes,
have
Neil.
for
So
us
I
on that?
was just going to add to what you were saying that the structure itself is made of. So if you see, it's like this. Of course, with age, it has yellowed a little, but it's more like a creamish white color, and that's because it's made out of limestone mainly. So you have granite, limestone, mortar, and marble as well, which went into building of this. And it's a whopping 14,000 tons, is what they say. I mean, you can't really know the exact weight, but that is what they say the weight is. So, like you said, I think if you wear something colorful and go, you'll really stand out against the Charminar when you're taking photos. You know, if you probably wear white, you'll merge into the monument. So that's another tip as to how, you know, depending on what type of a effect you want for your photos. So remember that you're going to be taking photos against something that's white. Height wise, it is the minarets are almost like, I found two notes here. One said it is about 160 feet, and the other one said about 184 feet high, depending on from where you start measuring the height. And each side, like you mentioned sometime back, each side is similar, and each side is about 20 meters. So that's like 66 feet in width on all the four sides. You know, there are four stories. So as you go up, and you mentioned the masjid, to go up there we can climb from the minarets, and there are about 149 steps to get to the top. And there are four stories, as I mentioned, and there are balconies there. um, I'm not so sure if the masjid is really open now for people to go, but when it was open, which is also quite nice, is there is a fountain, a water cistern, or what is known as a wazoo, where people could come wash their feet and then go up to the masjid to offer prayers. So I think that is really quite nice and thoughtful. But along with the masjid, Neil, there are some more than 49 areas where you can pay respects or pray in the whole Charminar complex. And I think what also makes it interesting is not just the minarets, but also the arches on all the four sides, because these arches serve as a vault and actually supports the structure as well. You know, as we are also doing this, you know, day trip across South Mumbai now, and we actually went across South Mumbai looking at the heritage monuments and the walk, we started paying more attention to the architecture of everything. And I think it's become a habit now to really pay more attention as to what is a vault, what is a arch, what is a tower, a minaret. And the same thing goes with Charminar. So I'm re-looking at the Charminar now, and it says that even the arches are not just pretty, so they're not just there for a decorative purpose, but also support the structure. And I think that is why, with so much of thought going in, monuments like the Charminar are standing tall even like more than 400 years today.
I quite agree. And I also agree with what you just said, right? That just looking at a monument tells you just a small story. But when we went around Mumbai, it like the actual tour telling you what architectural style it was, what why
Mhm.
was this built. Then once you start get deep diving into it, then it gets super interesting. And that's why, like, every episode that we have been doing, we have been looking at different types of monuments, different places of interest, and learning so much, right? Like, as we research about the monument before our episode. So, Sunila, of course, a few things before we reach the end of the episode. Some, like, I always like this part where we talk about some interesting facts, some interesting stories about the Charminar. So I'd like to talk about that first, and then let's
Mhm.
talk about the area surrounding it, because
Okay.
there is a bazaar, there are a few other monuments that you should really go. So what do you have when it comes to some interesting facts or some interesting stories of the Charminar?
Neil, I have at least two, and I know you have more. So I'll start first. But along with the whole Qutub Shahi monuments of Hyderabad, the Golkunder Fort, the Qutub Shahi tombs, this and Charminar is on the tentative list of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. And I won't be surprised if it is granted that status very soon. So that should be really nice. And for us, it is a heritage property. It is something we are proud of, and we go and see it all the while. In fact, there was a point that the iconic Charminar, because it's so clear when you look at it, it's Hyderabad. You can't miss it, right? And I think some smart people really took that up for branding. And in the 1970s, there was a very popular cigarette brand which was called Charminar, and it featured this monument on the pack. So, I mean, look at the branding; it's amazing. And the thing was that they always portrayed it with macho men, and that is how they kind of wanted to relate the city. And also, I think it brought that nobility into the brand, that this is the brand of the royals. Kind of just implying it very subtly that look, this is a royal brand. So I think that really helped it, and it was one of the most popular brands apparently. So I remember some advertisement with Jackie Shroff in it, and it was so popular at that time. It was so popular.
Yeah,
So
I
thankfully, people did then decide to add more graphic pictures onto the cigarette brands to kind of deter people from smoking it. But yes, I think it's excellent branding if you can actually take
yeah,
a
I quite
monument and put it on anything.
I quite agree. I also have a number of stories. What I did was I just started calling some of the Veena World tour managers and getting some facts from them. So the first one I have was that the Charminar and a replica of the Charminar has been made many times. A
Mhm.
sample of the Charminar was like created in a place called Nagaboli or Dabirpura, which is the graveyard before it was actually constructed. So it is said that as a sample to see what the monument would look like after it was constructed, it was created in this graveyard. Another one that I have is another replica of the Charminar, a small scaled one, was created in 2007 by Hyderabadi Muslims living in Pakistan. So it was on the main crossing of Bahadurabad neighborhood in Karachi. Then another replica was created by a Lindt chocolatier, a
Mm.
scaled model of the Charminar out of 50 kilograms of chocolate. So imagine that.
Wow.
And this was a model which required about 3 days of labor to be brought up, like to be created. And it was on display at the Westin in Hyderabad on the 25th and 26th of September in 2010 or 2010. So these were three different replicas that were created. One, a sample was created. One is like constructed in Pakistan. And of course, this hotel in Hyderabad did it. And I'm sure more and more will be created because hotels get innovative in attracting tourists from all over, right? Then another thing I have is the number of steps it takes for you to go up. To reach the upper floor is 149 widening steps. And that's how it has been constructed, right? You cannot
Yeah.
construct straight steps, but winding steps. And finally, like Chennai Express, the movie, there is actually a Charminar Express, which runs between Hyderabad and Chennai. And finally, now it is an icon of the city of Hyderabad and also an icon of the Telangana state. And it is basically an emblem of Telangana now. And in the past, the Charminar was such a symbol. And like you mentioned, it was on cigarette packets, but it was also on coins and banknotes. So I think the 5 rupee note used to have the Charminar on it. So these were some of the interesting facts that I
Neil, I'm
found
going
out.
to, tell you two more interesting stories. One of them is a story. There's no one that's proved it, and they say that there's actually a secret underground tunnel that links Charminar and the Golkonda Fort.
You
There
said that
is
they haven't ever found it,
They
right?
haven't really found it, but people believe it very strongly that there is, because it made sense that if there was a problem, the royal family could, come escape and come into the city. So that is what. And the other one's actually quite sweet. A cat's head is actually carved on one of the arches of Charminar. So on the
Mm.
eastern side, if you really pay attention, you will see a cat's head. And again, I think it proves the story of why Charminar was built, because plague is spread by rats and cats kill rats. So, as a thank you note to the cats, a cat's head is actually carved on one of the arches. So,
See,
that
that's what
was
I said,
something else.
right? Detailing on all sides is something that you can really capture in photographs. So that is there. Finally, coming towards the end, don't have much time, but
Mhm.
let's talk about the area surrounding it. So there is the Grand Bazaar, right? And
Yes,
there is also, if I'm not wrong, the four arches that surround the Charminar, which are known as the Char Kaman, or the
that's
four
right.
gateways. What do you have on the surrounding area of the Charminar?
I think the way the whole Charminar was built is that you could go to all the four directions, like four Charminar. Four has a very important role in the building or in the construction of Charminar, and in that sense, Hyderabad as well. So you have four directions and four arches pointing to each side for the four cardinal directions. So these commands, the Char commands are Kali Kaman, Machli Kaman, Shehere Batil Ki Kaman, and Charminar Kaman. And at the center of these arches is a fountain. So these commands today really are not very well kept, and of course there are encroachments, because I think answering Kuli Kutub Shah's prayers, the city has grown and grown and is full of people. But it still makes a really nice interesting picture, and it gives you an idea of how it was actually built at that time. One of the most interesting bazaars around is the Lard Bazaar, where you can buy bangles. And even today, in spite of having all the malls in the world and all the fashionable stores, it's still so much fun to walk into an actual bazaar, haggle a little bit, check the bangles. And Hyderabad is known for that. So for bangles, and then you have Pathar Gatti, which is known for its pearls. So you can pick up some really nice jewelry there. No, also close by is another monument, which is another grand mosque called the Makkah Masjid. And they call it so because when it was being built, some of the bricks were actually built by the soil which was brought from Mecca. So you have the whole area which kind of gets so much importance, I think, in and around Charminar as well. And yeah, if you want to have a good time out, that's perfect, because there are a lot of stalls there as well. So to taste Hyderabadi street food, it's another great place to go.
You know, to end, while we end it, one thing I'll mention about Makkah Masjid is that it is one of the largest mosques in India with a capacity of 10,000 people. Now, while you're approaching the Charminar, you don't realize that there's Makkah Masjid close by, but if you see an aerial photo, you'll often see it. Well, I guess that's it, right, Sunira? So,
Yes.
guys, if you are visiting Hyderabad, listen to this episode, take these notes, because the Charminar, like I said at the start of the episode, the four most important pillars you will see in India. So, this monument, situated on the east bank of the Musi River, with Lard Bazaar to its west, and to the southwest lies the richly ornamented granite Makkah Masjid. The Charminar is the symbol of Hyderabad, is the symbol of Telangana. So that was the Charminar. We'll see you next week with another interesting place of interest from India or around the world. Keep listening and stay tuned. Thank you so much for tuning in to Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life with Veena World. This is Neil and Sunila signing off. Bye-bye.
Bye.